McQuestion for over 28 years, talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, the Hatton W. Sumner's Foundation, helping to educate the public about the fundamental principles of their democracy and thus be in a position to help formulate public policy. Moss Adams LLP, certified public accountants and consultants, providing industry-smart tax, assurance, and consulting solutions to help businesses and their owners succeed since 1913. The University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
Now, many people think that today's American society is so radicalized that even having a civil conversation with someone with a different point of view is becoming almost impossible. Civil discourse is sometimes defined as the language of dispassionate objectivity, and it suggests that it requires respect of the other participants. Giving respect is not easy, and sometimes getting respect seems impossible. Why do we seem to be having this problem? And more importantly, what can we do about it? And to help us understand this issue, here are the experts. And first on my left is Don Edward Beck. He runs the National Values Institute and is the author, among other things, of Spiral Dynamics. He's a teacher, a geopolitical advisor, a theorist focusing on applications of large-scale psychology and its effect on human socio-cultural systems. And it's hard for me to even pronounce all that, Don. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
We'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit about some of your great adventures in South Africa and all the great things that you did down there. And now, if you can just help America, we'll be really glad. Next to you is Robert Hall. He's a former CEO of an international relationship management firm. He's a prolific author whose work has appeared in Forbes, CEO Magazine, and the Huffington Post, and his latest book is called This Land of Strangers. Robert, welcome back to the program.
It's good to be back.
Now, you just wrote an article, and I think the name of it is The Radicalization of Relationships. What does that mean? And so share your thoughts with our viewers on that.
Well, the thing that I think everybody recognizes today is that we're more polarized, we're more divided than we've ever been before, but having differences about politics or ideology or even faith's not new. The thing that I write about is we're to a point now where it's become so destructive for relationships that it's harder and harder for us as a society, whether you look at the federal government or all the way down to locally, to address problems and come up with solutions. Michael Porter at Harvard, very renowned strategist, says that the single largest challenge we face today economically is a function of our political dysfunction. So it's interesting, in my book, I spent 6 years researching what's the cumulative and compounding effect of relationship decline at home, and then at work, then in politics, and then in faith. And so the radicalization of relationships is really making it hard for our society to function. There's a book called Sapiens, a number of people familiar with, and the author of that book basically says that the reason humans evolved to the position we are is that we as humans learn to cooperate. And whether you're a person of faith or of science or anthropology or whatever, most any place you come from would say our ability to cooperate, to get things done in groups, small groups and clans to cities to countries, is really crucial. And that is at risk today because as a result of our differences and the decline in relationships, we're really struggling to function.
Okay, Don, first of all, do you agree with where he's coming from? And then secondly, tell us what some of the things are that cause this thing that we're talking about here.
Well, I certainly agree with what he says. And since we're talking here about what matters, is that right?
Well, talk about things that matter with people who care. That's our deal, right?
Why is it different things matter to different people? I mean, I've watched you for years with a number of guests here, and you very quickly try to figure out what really matters to them. And if we really ask that question at deep levels now, not superficial, political, religious, behavioral patterns, but down deep, what are the core value systems that exist under the surface. So if we have a spectrum from flamethrower on the left to flamethrower on the right, with degrees in between, what's happened today is that has separated. The middle has disappeared, and we find more and more people arguing from a much more extreme position and not realizing that's what they're doing. When I started working in South Africa, 65 trips, it was clear to me that the issues in South Africa were not about race. If you think they are, you missed the whole point. That's why I could work with Mandela, because I could show him the differences in those in South Africa, which are not accountable to what most Americans understand about race. It's about value systems. The issues in the Middle East, and we work in Israel-Palestine, are not about religion. They're about something else. And if I can get your thinking to what the something else's are, then you'll be amazed at what can happen.
Now, let me ask you, Don, you mentioned, and I've known you for a while, you've been on this program off and on for the 27 years we've been on. When you talk about value systems, can you give that viewer some idea of what you mean by value systems, and then how do you get at what that value system is?
Well, first, they're invisible. They are adaptive intelligences to life conditions. So when we have certain life conditions, they produce different adaptive intelligences. And we've identified 8 of those in our academic research. And they're from tribal to egocentric to absolutistic, I'll kill you in the name of God or Allah, and a materialistic kind of success, and a humanistic. So the real conflicts today between the two parties, and I've worked on this during the last election, are about value systems. Democrats, liberal, egalitarian, sensitive, naive, conservative Republicans, and there's a whole plethora of Republicans today, as we're finding out, are much more conservative, traditional, and when we have an election like we just had, neither group had any idea what was going on, because we've yet to produce, thank you education, we've yet to produce humans in this country that can think in different ways. And so that's what we've done. And so we wanted to field test it. Could we break the apartheid system? The answer was yes. What did it take? An understanding of these deep value systems.
Yeah, now, Robert, his stuff is very interesting, obviously. Do you get a sense of this in the research that you've done, the people you've talked to? Tell us how it folds into that, or if it's different, or do you think, where do you think this connection is?
The key thing that I see is that, let me just give you 2 statistics. In our Congress, in the 70s, about 30% of people, about 40% in Congress considered themselves moderate. 30% then liberal, 30% conservative. Today it's 10% moderate, 90% one side or the other. Citizens in this country today, if you go back to the 70s, about 29% of people self-identified as ideologically extreme in the 70s. Today it's nearly 50%. But if you actually go in and look at, so people think of themselves as more radical or ideologically extreme. But if you actually go in and